Welcome to Zoe Stories. The bedroom door clicked shut behind me, and I froze. There she was, Isabella, standing like a statue, her gaze scanning the chaotic heap of dresses I'd flung onto the chair. She didn't look angry. Not really. Her eyes were sharp, deliberate, like she had been waiting for this exact moment for weeks. "You've been hiding more than I thought," she said, stepping closer. Every movement was precise, measured. My heartbeat quickened, not from fear alone, but from a strange mix of anticipation and shame, and a part of me hated how much I craved this confrontation. Before I could even speak, she picked up the soft pink dress that had caught her eye. "We're doing this right," she said, holding it up with authority. Her tone was gentle, yet commanding. No half measures. I was about to surrender every secret, every lonely hour spent in private, to her guidance. She reached for me, steady hands directing me to stand, guiding my posture, adjusting my arms. Her fingers smoothed the fabric over me, tracing every fold, every wrinkle, while the cool silk brushed my skin. I froze, a surge of vulnerability and thrill hitting me all at once, sharper than any fear I'd ever known. "You're tense," she murmured, fingertips grazing my jaw. I shivered, caught between panic and a strange comfort. Trusting someone with this hidden side of me, letting them hold the reins to expose or transform me, it was terrifying. And yet, her composed, commanding presence made me nod, a silent surrender. By the time she was done, the old me felt like a distant memory. Makeup softened my features, the dress molded perfectly to my form, and the wig turned my tangled hair into elegant curls. The reflection staring back at me was someone I barely recognized, vulnerable, delicate, radiant. Isabella's smile was a blend of pride and something darker, something thrilling, and I couldn't tell where I ended and her control began. "Welcome to your other life," she said. In that instant, it hit me, I wasn't just indulging a hidden curiosity. This was transformation, on her terms, and I had no say in it. Ethan had always believed his life was ordinary. Predictable routines, long office hours, quiet evenings with Isabella, weekends that melted into the calm of domestic comfort. Yet beneath that surface, a secret pulsed, one he had never dared share, not even with Isabella. Crossdressing wasn't a fleeting whim. It was a private escape, a sanctuary where the self he was told to hide could finally breathe. It wasn't casual. It was essential. He remembered the earliest stirrings of this fascination, sneaking into his sister's wardrobe as a boy, marveling at the softness of fabrics, the way a skirt or blouse could reshape posture, movement, even presence. The thrill of secrecy, the heady taste of forbidden play, it had never left him. Into adulthood, it became ritual, intimate and solitary, a world apart from expectation. But tonight felt different. Ethan had returned home early, the apartment was still, save for the soft hum of the heater. Isabella was out, though he couldn't guess when she'd return. Wandering past the kitchen, phone in hand, a small package caught his eye. No name, just familiar handwriting of a boutique he'd long admired from afar, delicate, precise, tailored to the very fantasies he had nurtured in private. Hands shaking, he tore it open. Inside lay pastel garments, a flowing blouse, a pleated skirt, and ballet flats, each piece folded with care, the fabric whispering promises he hadn't dared speak aloud. A shiver ran down his spine, not fear, but anticipation. He had amassed such clothes secretly for years. Yet this package felt different. Purposeful. An invitation into the life he had longed to inhabit, now waiting for him to finally step inside. For a long moment, Ethan just stood there, hands hovering over the clothes, imagining the feel of each fabric sliding across his skin, the way the mirror would reflect a self he never let anyone glimpse. His heartbeat surged at the thought of it, the way he might move, sway, breathe differently. The idea was intoxicating, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. Isabella's return lingered in his mind like a shadow. What would she do if she found him like this? Laugh? Scold? Freeze in disbelief? The uncertainty sent a quiver of anxiety through him, yet it only fueled the thrill. The urge to step fully into this hidden self, even for a brief, stolen hour, was stronger than any fear. Slowly, he stripped down to his underwear, letting the soft blouse slip over his head, feeling the fabric caress his shoulders. The skirt followed, spinning around his legs as he adjusted it carefully, smoothing every fold, refining every movement. He held himself rigid yet graceful, a private ritual to complete the illusion he had imagined for years. When he finally met his own eyes in the mirror, the reflection was startling. It was him, yet not him, a fragile, hidden version brought to life in secret moments. Then his phone buzzed. Isabella. Hey, running late. Should be home in an hour. Don't start dinner without me. Ethan's pulse leapt. An hour. Just enough time to immerse himself in this other life before reality barged in. Every second was precious, every gesture charged. He glided through the apartment, testing the sway of the skirt, the soft pressure of the ballet flats on his feet, adjusting his stance, reveling in the elegance he rarely allowed himself. But every thrill carried its own tension. Every distant car, floorboard creak, and rustle of discarded packaging set his nerves on edge. Isabella could walk in at any moment. His secret felt like fine crystal, balanced on the edge of a counter, beautiful, fragile, and terrifyingly easy to shatter. Ethan tried to lose himself in the sensation, the way the fabrics draped, clung, and transformed him, but a persistent unease lingered beneath the surface. What if she found out? What if this secret shattered the trust, the quiet love they shared? He shoved the thought away, forcing himself to focus. For this hour, nothing existed except the soft whisper of silk, the mirror reflecting a version of himself rarely seen, and the intoxicating thrill of becoming someone else entirely. And yet, in the back of his mind, one thought refused to leave: what if tonight was more than just an experiment? What if it marked the start of something irreversible, a journey that would redefine who he was, and how Isabella would see him forever? He didn't hear the front door open. He didn't notice the soft click of the lock. All of his senses were locked on the bedroom, his secret stage. On the bed, his treasures lay arranged with care: pastel blouses, pleated skirts, delicate shoes, all glimmering in the soft lamplight, each piece a siren calling him deeper into his fantasy. His hands trembled as he reached for the softest fabric, a pale pink blouse he had coveted all week. It wasn't just the clothes tonight. It was the danger, the edge, knowing at any moment someone could walk in, Isabella, a neighbor, even a delivery person, and see everything. The risk electrified him, made his pulse spike. The satin brushed against his skin, sending shivers down his arms, mixing fear with longing. He stopped and studied the mirror. This reflection wasn't merely a man in women's clothing, it was someone suspended between two worlds. 1 foot in secrecy, 1 foot in a realm where rules and expectations didn't exist. His chest tightened, not from the blouse, but from desire. From acknowledgement of how much he wanted this, wanted it more than he had ever admitted. Then his phone buzzed. Fingers trembling, he picked it up. Feeling playful tonight, you? Just one word, though playful, but it struck him like lightning. Was she teasing? Testing? Or inviting him? The uncertainty sent his heart racing. He typed back carefully. Maybe just exploring. The reply came almost instantly. Exploring can be fun. Want me to join? Ethan froze. Join? Literally? Or was it a tease? His pulse thundered. The thrill wasn't just in crossdressing anymore, it was in the game Isabella had begun, whether she knew it or not. He glanced at the clock. 10 minutes to decide. 10 minutes before fantasy and reality could collide. 10 minutes. 10 minutes to risk exposure or retreat. The skirt felt impossibly soft beneath his fingers, richer in color and texture than anything he had ever dared wear. His reflection in the full-length mirror mirrored the storm inside him: desire, fear, curiosity, and the electric thrill of the forbidden. Imagining Isabella's gaze, even if only in his mind, made his grip tighten on the waistband. He pictured her stepping into the room, tilting her head with amusement, a teasing smirk on her lips. "You've been naughty," she might say, voice low, playful, commanding. Would he confess everything? Or would he retreat, shrouding himself in lies and half-truths? Ethan drew a steadying breath. He knew he couldn't stop now. Every fiber of his being demanded continuation. The thrill of risk, the tension of the unknown, and the pull of secret desire fused into something irresistible. He began dressing carefully, deliberately, each piece of clothing a small rite of transformation. The blouse slid over his shoulders, silk caressing his skin. The skirt twirled around his legs, the fabric whispering against him as he adjusted the hem. Each layer was more than fabric, it was a revelation, a symbol of a life he had longed to inhabit in secret. He studied the mirror again. The reflection staring back was no mere man in women's clothes. It was desire made visible, vulnerability made tangible, confidence unearthed from years of concealment. The sway of the skirt with every movement, the gentle hug of lace along his arms, this was no costume. This was metamorphosis. A soft knock froze him. Panic flared. Isabella? But she wasn't supposed to be home yet. Another knock, louder this time, echoed like a drum in his chest. Ethan's mind raced. Hide? Confront? Retreat to the safety of secrecy? Or step fully into the world he had always craved? He chose deliberate defiance. Sliding delicate stockings up his legs, the touch intimate, charged with danger. His trembling fingers found the hairbrush on the dresser, smoothing his hair with careful precision, imagining Isabella's reaction, judgment? Laughter? Fascination? The knocking continued, insistent, and his stomach churned. Yet the mirror no longer reflected fear, it reflected a crossroads. The final piece awaited, ballet flats, soft, elegant, completing the transformation. Sliding them onto his feet, he felt the final seal click into place. The girl in the mirror was entirely new, yet entirely him, a hidden self finally brought to life. The knocking stopped. Ethan exhaled, chest heaving with a wild mixture of fear, exhilaration, and liberation. The moment had arrived. He was caught between secrecy and revelation, and for the first time, he felt ready to embrace the self he had long denied. Alone once more, Ethan stood still, letting the quiet stretch around him. For the first time, he truly looked at the reflection before him, not just a man in women's clothing, not merely a fantasy come alive. Then, his phone buzzed. A simple message. "Isabella, you're awfully quiet tonight. Everything okay?" The words hit him like ice and fire at once. Every nerve in his body tensed. He was suspended between fantasy and reality, between exhilaration and fear. Could he tell her the truth? Share this hidden self? Or would he have to bury it deeper, risking exposure in ways far more dangerous? The mirror reflected not just his image but his indecision, the fragile duality of who he was and who he longed to be. And he realized something crucial, the thrill wasn't just in the clothes. It was in the unknown, in the chance of being truly seen by someone who mattered. The stakes had escalated. The game had intensified. Standing fully transformed, Ethan felt the edge of a choice that could change everything. He had begun to settle into the rhythm of this new persona when the doorbell rang. Heart pounding, he froze. He hadn't expected anyone. Panic swept through him as he smoothed the blouse along his arms, every sound amplified, the tick of the clock, the hum of the fridge, distant traffic. Through the blinds, he saw a familiar face, Zelina, Isabella's best friend. Smiling, holding a small package. Ethan froze. Lena was sharp, outspoken, always noticing things. If she saw him like this? He retreated instinctively, mind racing for solutions, hide, explain, bluff. The closet felt impossibly small, the stakes impossibly high. Lena's footsteps drew closer, her knock firm. "Ethan? You in there?" "Isabella asked me to drop this off." He swallowed, forcing calm. "You can do this." Just stay composed. Taking a slow breath, he cracked the door just enough to peek. Lena's eyes widened, not in shock, but in curiosity. Well, is that, she began, gesturing vaguely at his outfit. Heat surged through Ethan's cheeks. His voice caught. It's a costume for a party tonight, he stammered. Lena tilted her head, studying him for a moment. Really? Huh. Well, looks nice, actually, she said, her tone teasing but gentle. She handed over the package. Hands shaking, Ethan took it. As she left, he closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling in relief. The encounter had passed, but the tension lingered. What if someone else arrived unexpectedly? Or worse, if Isabella returned early? He moved back to the mirror, studying himself. Fully transformed. Vulnerable. Thrilled. And dangerously aware of how easily this fragile world could collapse. The figure in the mirror was no longer a disguise. It was Ethan, finally allowing a hidden part of himself to exist in the open, even if only within these four walls. The fear of being discovered still pressed against him, sharp and undeniable, but it was woven tightly with exhilaration. The transformation and the danger were inseparable now. Refusing to let anxiety win, he pushed further. He reached for the makeup, hands steady despite his racing heart. Eyeliner traced careful lines, mascara darkened his lashes. Each stroke felt intimate, deliberate, the brush gliding over his skin heightened both his excitement and his nerves. When he finally placed the wig on his head and adjusted it strand by strand, the change felt complete. The reflection staring back was composed, confident, undeniably feminine. And yet inside, he felt exposed, thrilled and fragile all at once. The doorbell rang again. Ethan froze. His breath caught. Another interruption. Another risk. Peering through the blinds, he spotted a delivery driver holding a parcel. Relief mingled with tension. Every unexpected visitor was a reminder, this secret life came with consequences. The danger itself had become part of the allure, navigating the risk was as intoxicating as the transformation. He sat on the edge of the bed, letting the moment settle. Fear, excitement, curiosity, identity, they swirled together into something overwhelming and irresistible. This wasn't just experimentation anymore. Something inside him was shifting, taking shape. As evening settled in, he moved through the apartment, testing heels against the floor, refining his posture, adjusting the way he walked. The secret thrill that once belonged only to shadows had evolved into a careful balance of emotion and risk. Then he heard it, the unmistakable sound of a car pulling into the driveway. His breath stopped. Isabella. She was home early. Ethan had always believed he understood his limits. He had played safely in secrecy, explored quietly, retreated when necessary. But nothing had prepared him for the charged stillness of being fully immersed in this version of himself when discovery felt imminent. The apartment was empty, the city outside glowing with movement and sound, yet inside time seemed suspended. He drifted into the living room, smoothing the skirt as satin slid over his legs. The sensation was intoxicating, soft, elegant, unfamiliar, and entirely his. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan knew there was no returning to who he had been before tonight. His fingers lingered on the fabric as if committing every texture to memory. In that quiet moment, Ethan understood this wasn't simple curiosity anymore. It was an unspoken need, an urge to explore a part of himself he had never fully acknowledged, not even in private thought. On the coffee table, a photo album lay open, forgotten from an earlier evening. Images of him and Isabella filled the pages, sunlit smiles at the beach, shared laughter over dinners, candlelit birthday celebrations. He studied her in each photo, her ease, her confidence, the way she seemed so certain of herself in every frame. A sudden thought struck him. What if stepping into this persona wasn't about escaping his life, but understanding hers? Just for a moment. He glanced back at the mirror, a playful spark in his eyes, and tested his voice, softening it, adjusting the rhythm, exploring unfamiliar inflections. The reflection seemed almost unreal. Ethereal. A surge of power washed through him, the power of transformation, of becoming someone new while still feeling unmistakably himself. But the thrill was quickly edged with tension. His heart raced as doubt crept in. What if Isabella sees me like this? Each careful step in the heels felt like balancing on a narrow line suspended over exposure and judgment. The excitement and the fear were inseparable now. Determined to push further, Ethan opened a drawer filled with accessories, necklaces, bracelets, hair clips, and began experimenting, layering each piece with deliberate care. Every addition felt symbolic, stripping away the familiar exterior he wore daily and revealing something more honest beneath. He caught himself smiling at the mirror, an expression caught between wonder, anxiety, and exhilaration. Time slipped by unnoticed. Outside, the city lights shifted as night settled in, the hum of traffic deepening. Ethan felt both free and confined, liberated by self-discovery, yet trapped by the constant awareness that discovery by others was always close. At last, he chose a delicate charm bracelet and a pair of dangling earrings. Tracing the smooth metal with his fingertips, he felt a quiet sense of empowerment. This was no longer just about appearance. It was a declaration, a hidden truth finally allowed to breathe. As he posed before the mirror, adjusting angles and posture, the sound of the front door unlocking sent a shock through his body. His heart slammed against his chest. Instinctively, he ducked behind the couch, clutching the edges of his outfit as if it might vanish. The door opened. "I'm home, Ethan," Isabella called, cheerful and unaware. The air crackled with tension. His secret, his desires, his transformation, hovered on the brink of revelation. In that moment, he knew this night marked a turning point. Not only in his understanding of himself, but in the fragile, evolving space between him and Isabella. He stayed perfectly still, barely breathing, hoping she wouldn't notice anything unusual, while another part of him ached to remain fully inside this version of himself, the one that felt more vivid than his everyday life. Over the past few nights, Ethan had grown braver. What had once been a hidden refuge had slowly turned into a private stage, the apartment transformed into a place where he could rehearse the life he'd only imagined. Each outfit, each careful stroke of makeup, pulled him deeper into a world he'd always wanted but never dared to claim. And with every step forward, the tension tightened, a quiet reminder that secrets were delicate, easily shattered. It had begun innocently enough. Isabella had bought a dress for an upcoming charity gala, a deep crimson piece with lace detailing and a flowing skirt. Ethan had admired it for weeks from a distance, picturing how it might feel, how it might change him. Tonight, alone, he finally gave in. The moment he slipped into the dress, a shiver ran through him. The fabric settled against his body as if it belonged there, lace brushing softly against his skin. He turned slowly, watching the skirt bloom around him, his posture shifting without effort. He practiced walking, the soft rhythm of heels against wood making his heart race. Then everything stopped. A key turned in the lock. Isabella. Panic surged. He was still dressed, makeup flawless, the wig slightly out of place. There was nowhere to run. He crouched behind the sofa, clutching the skirt, silently pleading for her to head somewhere else first. She didn't. Isabella entered, humming, grocery bags in hand. Her eyes moved across the room and landed on him. The silence was crushing. Ethan felt exposed, every heartbeat echoing in his ears. Her expression shifted, surprise, confusion, something unreadable. He wanted to speak, to explain, to vanish, but his voice wouldn't come. "Ethan," she said at last, calm but curious. "Is that you?" The question carried everything at once: fear, possibility, judgment, hope. He stepped out slowly, hands gripping the fabric to steady himself. Isabella took him in fully now, the dress, the makeup, the earrings catching the light. He braced himself. Instead of anger, her expression softened. She lowered herself slightly to meet his eyes. "I didn't know," she said gently. "I mean, I suspected you liked experimenting, but this is something else." Relief and terror crashed together. Her hand hovered, uncertain, then extended toward him. "Do you want help?" The question sent a rush through him, trust, acceptance, excitement tangled into one. For the first time, he understood that this part of himself didn't have to exist alone. As they moved toward the bedroom, the dress whispering around his legs, his heart still raced, but now with anticipation instead of dread. When Isabella reached for the makeup kit, he wondered how far this shared transformation might go. Later, when he was alone again, the memory lingered. Ethan had always been meticulous, almost obsessive. Dressing, makeup, heels, it was a private ritual, a controlled indulgence. But tonight carried a different charge. Isabella wasn't home, and that absence made him reckless. He slipped into her wardrobe, untouched and tempting. Silk, lace, satin, each piece seemed to promise a new version of himself. His fingers paused on a navy cocktail dress, smooth and cool beneath his touch. He imagined how it would fall over his shoulders, shape his body, make him feel complete. As he undressed, doubt flickered. He knew the risks, his marriage, his life, everything he'd built. But the danger only sharpened the thrill. The dress slid over his head, satin cool against his skin. He looked up at the mirror and froze. This wasn't just a reflection. It was a truth he could no longer ignore. The figure in the mirror felt like a promise fulfilled. Not a disguise, not a fantasy, but a version of himself he had quietly yearned for. Someone graceful. Someone unburdened. Someone unafraid. Then his phone vibrated. The sudden sound jolted him so badly he nearly lost his balance, heels scraping against the floor. His hands shook as he grabbed the phone. A message from Isabella. "Running late at work. Bring your surprise downstairs. Can't wait to see you." His stomach dropped. She was coming home. And he was standing there in full evening attire, no excuses, no half measures. Panic flared, colliding with a rush of exhilaration. He could still hide. He could change. Pretend this never happened. But after all the care, all the courage it had taken to become this version of himself, hiding suddenly felt like betrayal of himself. So he chose risk. Minutes later, the familiar sound of keys rattled in the lock. His pulse thundered. He smoothed the dress, adjusted the wig, and drew in a steadying breath. When Isabella stepped inside, he stopped mid-movement and let her see everything. Her eyes widened, not with shock, but with something warmer. Amusement. Curiosity. Admiration. "Well," she said lightly, a smile tugging at her lips, "this is unexpected." Her gaze lingered. "Did you dress up for me?" Ethan swallowed. His voice wavered. I wanted to try. I thought maybe," he faltered. Isabella laughed softly, the sound easing the tightness in his chest. "You thought maybe what? That I'd panic? That I'd tell you to change right away?" He shook his head. "I just wanted to know if I could be like this, with you knowing." She stepped closer, her eyes tracing the lace, the careful lines, the confidence he hadn't realized he was wearing. "You look incredible," she said at last, her voice sincere. "I've never seen you like this, and honestly, it suits you." The words sent a jolt through him. Relief washed over fear. Excitement bloomed where anxiety had lived. She wasn't rejecting this part of him. She was curious about it. What followed wasn't a confrontation, but a quiet exploration. A shared experiment built on trust. Isabella showed him new makeup techniques, adjusted the wig so it framed his face just right, guided him with gentle precision. Every touch felt intentional, supportive, intimate without needing to be anything more. Ethan had never felt so visible. So accepted. The suspense that once terrified him had transformed into something shared, a private thrill, a new language between them. The apartment became their stage, a place where identities softened, boundaries stretched, and trust was tested not with fear, but with care. And when they finally paused, the air still humming with possibility, Ethan knew this night had changed everything. Drained yet buzzing with energy, Ethan understood one undeniable truth: nothing would ever be the same again. What had once been a solitary secret now belonged to two people. Isabella wasn't just aware, she was involved. An accomplice in a shared exploration that blurred fear, curiosity, and a fragile sense of freedom. Still, a question refused to quiet itself. How far could this go? How much could they uncover before the world pushed back? The uncertainty hung heavier than any silk or lace. The apartment was hushed, broken only by the soft, deliberate tap of heels against the floor. Every movement felt magnified. Every whisper of fabric sent his pulse skidding. The dress fit beautifully, and frighteningly, its presence a constant reminder of how exposed this new reality truly was. Just as the last traces of makeup were blended smooth, the doorbell rang. Panic struck instantly. Sharp. Electric. Who would arrive now, at this hour? Instinct screamed to disappear, but escape was no longer simple. The outfit restricted movement, elegance becoming a liability. He stood frozen as the bell rang again, followed by a knock firmer this time. Carefully, he edged toward the door, peering through the curtain. A shadow shifted outside. A presence that made his nerves tighten instantly. Then a voice, familiar. One name spoken aloud. His stomach dropped. There was no time to plan. Retreat would draw attention. Hiding would guarantee discovery. His heart slammed against his ribs as if trying to escape on its own. Swallowing hard, he cracked the door open just enough to appear composed. "Hi, can I help you?" The words came out thin, unsteady, betraying more than he meant to reveal. The visitor's eyes widened, scanning him slowly. Confusion flickered, followed by something sharper, recognition, maybe suspicion. "I'm just checking on a delivery," he said quickly. The excuse sounded fragile even to his own ears. The visitor stepped closer, brow furrowing. "Are you sure?" Time stretched painfully. One wrong glance. One misplaced breath. One slip, and everything would unravel. His thoughts raced, searching for anything to break the moment. Oh, right. The doorbell. "Maybe that's the delivery person now," he said, gesturing vaguely. The hesitation worked. Just enough. Curiosity shifted. A narrow opening appeared. Slowly, carefully, he stepped aside, movements controlled, hyper-aware of every sound, every breath, every place the visitor's eyes lingered. The air felt thick, charged, balanced precariously between secrecy and exposure. The danger hadn't passed. Not yet. The visitor lingered at the threshold, scanning the apartment, suspicion still alive in the silence. Ethan forced himself to remain calm, even as every instinct screamed. The heels clicked softly as he shifted his weight, the sound impossibly loud. His breathing stayed shallow. His heartbeat thundered. This wasn't the end of the test. It was only the beginning. The dress whispered with every slight movement, a soft sound that felt far too loud in the silence. He stiffened when the visitor spoke again. "Are you here alone?" The question landed like a dropped glass. His thoughts scattered instantly, truth or lie, safety or suspicion. There was no time to weigh consequences. Instinct chose for him. "Yeah. Just me." The words came out calm, almost convincing, though his chest trembled beneath them. He forced a faint smile, willing it not to crack. The visitor studied him closely, eyes narrowing, as if measuring every breath. Time slowed to a crawl. Then it happened. A sound from the other room, something small hitting the floor, followed by the faintest shift of movement. His stomach twisted violently. The visitor's head snapped toward the noise. "You all right in there?" the visitor asked, stepping forward. That single step felt catastrophic. The room seemed to shrink. His heartbeat roared in his ears, drowning out everything else. Sweat gathered at his hairline, threatening to betray him as panic clawed upward. "Think. Now." His fingers brushed the vanity, grazing the edge of a mirror, and inspiration sparked. "Oh, sorry," he blurted, reaching for a notebook on the table. "I was just checking something for a project." He held it out quickly, a flimsy shield but the only one he had. The visitor hesitated. "Just enough." Silence thickened as the notebook was examined, not just the pages, but the excuse, the posture, the eyes behind it all. Every blink felt dangerous. Every breath too loud. Finally, the visitor leaned back, muttering something about coming back later to confirm the delivery. Relief washed over him so suddenly it nearly buckled his knees. But it wasn't over. He knew that deep in his bones. The moment the visitor stepped away, the weight of everything crashed back down. The dress felt heavier now, clinging tighter. The makeup seemed to burn under the lights. Adrenaline sharpened every sensation until the room felt unreal. Though the apartment fell quiet again, the scrutiny lingered like a ghost, proof that this double life came with equal parts exhilaration and fear. And then, keys rattled at the front door. The sound cut through the silence like a blade. Panic surged fresh and violent. The visitor hadn't gone far. Someone else was arriving. The fragile balance shattered as his mind scrambled through impossible options. Change clothes? No time. Fix the wig? Too late. Erase the makeup? Already smudged. The dress clung to him. The mirror reflected chaos. There was nowhere left to hide. And whatever happened next would change everything. The closet was barely wide enough to breathe in, but it was the only option left. Heavy footsteps echoed closer, deliberate now, paired with the muted sound of another door opening deeper in the house. The visitor hadn't left, he lingered near the threshold, hovering like a storm that refused to pass. One glance confirmed it, they were both trapped in the same rising panic. Then everything shifted. From another room came a sudden burst of laughter, sharp, familiar, effortless. A voice he knew well, relaxed and completely unaware of the chaos tightening its grip just beyond the walls. It felt unreal, like the universe had cracked a grin at his expense. Both men froze. The visitor turned toward the sound, curiosity flaring. That brief distraction was all it took for doubt to harden into suspicion. "What are you doing back here?" the visitor asked, his voice no longer casual. There was a careful edge to it now, alert and probing. The laughter continued, louder, masking the soft approach of footsteps. Panic surged hot and fast. Every instinct screamed to move, yet every warning in his body said that even the slightest mistake would shatter everything. Acting on pure adrenaline, he slipped behind the dressing screen, narrowly avoiding the rack of clothes beside it. Fabric whispered as he moved. A heel tapped lightly against the floor. In the silence, each sound felt explosive. The visitor stepped closer, eyes sweeping the room, senses sharpened. From the other room, the familiar voice called out again, playful, teasing, oblivious. The irony was cruel. That voice was both a shield and a threat. He held his breath, lungs burning, heart pounding so violently it felt impossible that no one could hear it. Seconds stretched. Then more. The visitor finally shifted back, muttering under his breath, irritation seeping through the tension. Moments later, the other person entered the room, humming softly, unaware of the secret concealed just a few feet away. Relief hit like a wave, immediate and overwhelming, yet terror followed close behind. The danger had passed, but only barely. The stakes had changed. What once felt daring now felt razor-thin. The dress clung tighter, the wig tugged uncomfortably, makeup heavy and warm against his skin. These weren't just symbols of transformation anymore, they were liabilities. The visitor could return. Someone else could notice. A single sound, a misplaced glance, a trembling hand, any of it could unravel everything. Time seemed to slow unnaturally. Floorboards creaked. The heater hummed. Fabric brushed softly against skin, each sensation amplified to a near breaking point. Hidden behind the screen, heart racing, escape felt impossible. The visitor paused mid-step, slowly turning, scanning the room with a quiet intensity that sent a jolt of fear straight through him. Danger. And yet, beneath the fear, a strange exhilaration pulsed. The secrecy. The risk. The raw adrenaline. It all made the transformation feel sharper, deeper, more intoxicating than before. This was no longer simple curiosity. It was a point of no return. This wasn't indulgence anymore, it was instinct. Survival wrapped in secrecy, threaded with the fragile rush of doing something forbidden. The visitor leaned in, voice lowered, unfinished words slipping out like a threat. Are you? The question never landed, hanging sharp and dangerous in the air. A drop of sweat traced down his temple, blurring into the shimmer of makeup. Every muscle locked, braced for impact. Then, clatter. A brush slipped from the vanity, striking the floor with a sound far louder than it had any right to make. Both bodies jolted. The visitor's head snapped toward the noise, eyes wide, breath caught. In that instant, exposure felt inevitable, close enough to taste. Time fractured. Freeze and hope. Move and risk everything. Speak and shatter the illusion. The weight of the moment pressed down hard, crushing the lungs, stretching seconds into something unbearable. The dress clung tightly, thrilling and treacherous all at once. The heels bit into the carpet. The wig sat just slightly wrong, convincing, yet one careless glance away from ruin. From the other room came laughter again, light, unknowing, absurdly out of place. It sliced through the tension just enough to offer a breath of relief, but not salvation. The danger remained. The visitor hesitated, suspicion flickering across their face, uncertainty warring with instinct. Could they feel it, the split existence hidden inches away? Could they sense that beneath silk and makeup lived another life entirely? The step forward was slow. A hand lifted, paused midair. Eyes narrowed. The pulse thundered, loud as a drumbeat in the silence. Fear and exhilaration collided violently, turning the moment electric. Every instinct screamed that one wrong move would end everything. And yet, there was a thrill in it. A reckless, dizzy pleasure that made the hiding feel almost intoxicating. The room seemed to hold its breath. Outside the screen, innocence hummed softly. Inside it, every thought, every muscle, every shallow breath was a gamble. Nothing felt stable. Nothing familiar. Nothing safe. The secret life wavered on the edge, balanced between discovery and escape, waiting for a single heartbeat to tip the scale. What felt like hours had passed, but it had only been minutes. Shadows stretched unnaturally. Reflections in the mirror watched in silent judgment. Breathing felt like betrayal. Each heartbeat echoed like a warning bell. The wig itched. The heels ached. The dress, once intoxicating, now weighed heavy with meaning, desire and danger stitched together. Then it happened. The visitor's fingers brushed the edge of the screen. And everything stood perfectly, terrifyingly still. The contact was barely there, no more than a whisper against fabric, but it sent a jolt through him like lightning. His breath caught. Every instinct screamed to go still, to dissolve into the darkness and pretend he wasn't there at all. If he didn't move, maybe this would pass. Maybe it was nothing more than nerves playing tricks. And yet, beneath the fear, something else burned, sharp, undeniable, thrilling. Shame and excitement tangled together, impossible to separate. A quiet cough came from just beyond the screen. Too close. The visitor's presence filled the room now, heavy and searching. Their gaze swept slowly, deliberately, and when they spoke, their voice was calm, but edged with certainty. Something's wrong here. The words sliced cleanly through the fragile illusion of safety. Panic surged, hot and breathless. Reveal everything and end the suspense? Or cling to the disguise and gamble on silence? Seconds stretched thin, elastic, unbearable. His thoughts spiraled, weighing the cost of discovery against the intoxicating danger of almost being caught. Then came the smallest betrayal, a soft whisper of fabric as he shifted his weight. That was all it took. The visitor's eyes snapped toward the sound. The screen quivered, just slightly. Fingers brushed its edge again, lingering now, deliberate. In that frozen instant, the world collapsed inward. There was only this moment, heartbeat, breath, survival. The transformation became a weapon turned inward. The dress empowered and betrayed. The wig concealed and exposed. The makeup both shielded and announced his presence. Everything that had once felt liberating now hovered on the brink of undoing him. And then... hesitation. The visitor paused. Doubt flickered across their face, suspicion warring with uncertainty. For one suspended heartbeat, nothing moved. The air itself seemed to hold still, trapped between truth and illusion. In that fragile pause, a dangerous rush surged through him, a reminder that secrecy was never safe, but it was intoxicating. The screen trembled again. Fingers lingered. Breath hitched. This was it. The instant that would decide everything, caught or concealed, exposed or unseen, fear or forbidden exhilaration. And the choice hovered there, razor-thin, waiting to fall. The room felt charged, as if the air itself were holding its breath. Every tiny sound, the faint groan of wood beneath shifting weight, the whisper of fabric brushing skin, rang out far louder than it should have. Standing perfectly still, the truth settled in with a heavy certainty. There would be no slipping away this time. The fantasy, the careful preparation, the secret thrill, it was all converging into a single, unavoidable moment. A shadow slid across the doorway. The visitor's eyes traced the space with unsettling focus, missing nothing. Instinct begged for escape, but the heels rooted him in place, balance fragile, movement risky. The dress clung insistently, turning even a breath into a potential mistake. The makeup, once a symbol of confidence and control, now felt like a confession written across his face. "You've been hiding something," the voice said quietly. There was no heat in it. No accusation. Just certainty. And somehow, that calmness made his pulse thunder even harder. The words pressed down with the weight of everything he had tried to protect. For a heartbeat, the world slowed to a crawl, emotions crashing together in a dizzying surge, fear tangled with exhilaration, shame colliding with a fierce sense of being alive. This was the peak of it all. Every secret urge. Every stolen moment. Every risk taken for the sake of feeling whole. The visitor stepped closer, closer than anyone ever had. A hand lifted, not aggressive, not threatening, but curious. Fingers brushed the wig lightly, and the sensation sent a shiver straight through him, sharp and electric, exposing just how vulnerable he truly was. The mirror caught everything. There it was, the truth reflected back without mercy. Not a disguise. Not a game. Two versions of the same person standing in the open, unable to look away. There was a choice now. Stay locked in place and brace for confrontation, or step forward, claim the truth, and accept whatever followed. The visitor's expression shifted, something softer surfacing beneath the scrutiny. Curiosity. Maybe even understanding. The moment stretched, fragile and suspended, until the faintest smile curved their lips. Interesting, they said. The word lingered in the air, neither judgment nor approval, but an open door. The tension didn't disappear. If anything, it sharpened, daring the next move, leaving everything unresolved and poised on the edge of what came next. Would the secret survive the scrutiny, or crumble under the weight of exposure? The confrontation had arrived, sharp and inevitable, yet its outcome remained a blur of possibility. Silence filled the room like a living thing, thick and suffocating. Each inhale felt amplified, each heartbeat reverberating against the walls, loud enough to drown out rational thought. The figure in the doorway didn't move, didn't speak, yet the single word that had been uttered, interesting, wound itself through every nerve, electric and unrelenting. Instincts screamed to flee, to vanish, to escape into shadows. But the body refused. The heels pressed into the floor, stiff and confining. The dress clung in ways that made the smallest gesture dangerous, and the makeup sat like a fragile mask. One wrong motion could betray everything. Then the visitor shifted, deliberate, careful, each step heavy with unspoken observation. Time seemed to stretch thin. Every fiber of his being vibrated with dread and a pulse-quickening thrill. What would come next? Exposure or acceptance? Curiosity or judgment? A distant knock echoed through the hallway, muffled yet unmistakable. Another voice, unfamiliar and uninvited, intruded into the charged silence. Coincidence or fate? The timing made the secret feel vulnerable, as if the very air conspired to reveal it. Every object in the room, the mirror, the furniture, the scattered garments, suddenly seemed alive, witnesses to the hidden life teetering on the edge of discovery. The wig atop his head felt suddenly delicate, precarious. The dress seemed less like clothing and more like armor against a world that might not understand. Even the softest rustle of fabric, the faint click of a heel, could signal catastrophe. And then the visitor spoke again, quieter this time, teasing and dangerous in its calm. Let's see how far this goes. The words hung like a spark above kindling. Nothing was resolved, yet everything had changed. Suspense stretched into infinity, leaving the next move uncertain, the stakes impossibly high. The secret, the transformation, the dual life, everything balanced on a knife's edge. What would you do if you were him? Reveal yourself, cling to the disguise, or slip away into the shadows? The tension refuses release, the story pauses at the cliff, and the audience is left leaning forward, hearts racing, waiting for the next heartbeat to decide everything. The scene fades, unresolved, the suspense lingering, a promise of chaos and revelation yet to come.